Thank you, Jennifer, and welcome to Become a Scholar Practitioner. Let's Talk Research. My name is Patty Griffin, and I'm the Director of the Academic Advising and Career Exploration Center, and also an Associate Professor of Communication Studies at Fort Hays State University. I am a board member with NACADA and have been an active member since 1997. NACADA actually assisted me during my dissertation at Kansas State University back in 1994, and so that was an opportunity for me to get involved as a scholar practitioner with NACADA. At the closing of last year's annual conference, David Speight, our current NACADA president, challenged us to get engaged in NACADA and, of course, in the advising profession as well. He also followed up with an article in the Academic Advising Today highlighting 4 areas of engagement. Those areas are listed on this slide for you and have been the basis for the creation of our webinar series. The board took on the challenge of getting engaged and decided to offer a Q&A series to provide a platform for our members and leaders to connect, grow, and learn from each other. If you've been participating in this webinar series this summer, you probably attended or maybe weren't able to participate that day, but were able to watch on the web or get engaged in the profession, Let's Talk Core Values, or possibly the Learn Another Approach, Let's Talk Advising. As we've said, this is the Become a Scholar Practitioner, Let's Talk Research, and so today that's what we'll actually be talking to you about in this webinar, and then of course we'll have one more to finish out our summer series, which is Get Engaged in the Association, Let's Talk Involvement. So let's get started today with our webinar. We have a panel of leaders who we have cover a breadth of experience at their own institution and within NACADA and the advising profession. Kiana, please get us started.
Hi everyone, I'm Kiana Shiroma. I'm from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. Thank you for having me. Craig?
Hello everyone, my name is Craig McGill. I'm an academic advisor and doctoral student at Florida International University in sunny Miami.
And hey everyone, I'm Wendy Troxel, proud to now be at Kansas State University in the NACADA Executive Office and in the College of Education at Kansas State. Back to you, Patty.
Although this is a Q&A session, we're hopeful that each of our participants will be able to reach the following outcomes as a result of your involvement today. We believe that the knowledge that you will gather should not stop after our webinar, rather that you should use this opportunity and information as a springboard to assist you in exploring research and opportunities within NACADA. If you have questions as we move through the presentation, please submit your questions through the Q&A at the bottom of your screen, and we will address the questions at the end. As we know, we're all scholar practitioners, so whether you've come to that realization through academic affairs or student affairs, it's the importance of the research that is our highlight and increasing the body of knowledge within higher education. The references for the quotes that you see on the screen will be provided at the end of our webinar today. So Kiana, let's start with you, and could you please share your pathway to being a scholar practitioner?
Sure, of course. Thank you, Patty. So what is really neat to me is that being a scholar practitioner is really a cycle. So for example, I knew I always wanted to be an advisor even when I started my undergrad. And then also in an area that I was interested in, so I chose speech. So at this point, I was only a researcher as I did not do any kind of advising yet. I also looked at the job description of
Kiana, just to let you know, you're cutting in and out just a little bit. And you're frozen for us. You may need to go out and come back in.
Yeah, this is Gary. I suggest that. She's frozen up. I don't know whether it's a bandwidth issue or some other issue, but it's dropped out completely on my end.
Craig, why don't you get us started, and we'll come back to Kiana's slides.
Hi everyone, I'm Craig McGill, as I said earlier. And so I just want to overview kind of how I came to this path. But first, this is kind of my time-oriented academically. And I realized this in retrospect that this is actually in reverse chronological order, but starting from the bottom, I did my undergraduate work at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and I did 4 undergraduate majors, which was a total of 188 credits and 4 full-time summers. Not something I would recommend or that I would do over again if I had the opportunity, but what it did provide me with is kind of preparation in the arts, humanities, and social sciences. And so during my undergraduate time, I was introduced to NACADA and the world of academic advising by my English academic advisor. And I was thrilled to learn about the certificate that Kansas State University offered in academic advising. And so after I graduated from my undergrad, I immediately began work on my master's program in music because I knew that that was one of my passions and I couldn't live without it. And I kind of thought a little naively that I'd be able to do the certificate in academic advising at the same time. And so I took one class and I discovered that this was not going to work, but I kept it in the back of my head. So after I finished the master's degree in music, I started to teach at as an adjunct at a local college. And during this time, I finished the certificate. And I was enjoying the certificate so much that I went on to actually do the full master's program in academic advising. After I finished that, I was an academic advisor at the University of Nebraska, which is my alma mater. And I began advising for forensic science and biochemistry. I started my doctorate here when I got to FIU in 2012 in adult education and human resource development. And it really was the meeting with the woman who is now my advisor that really got me thinking about this scholarship and research. She has a passion for getting her doctoral students to write and publish regularly. And so that's been a really good fit for me. In terms of my publications, here is a broad overview to date. In addition, I've given 47 conference presentations, and this is now my 3rd NACADA webinar, which has really been really fun. And so this also illustrates an important point that one of the best ways to publish is to develop a manuscript out of conference presentations. Conference presentations are oftentimes a good place to test your ideas and to work through them and to get feedback. And so oftentimes these really make a good fit for developing into a manuscript. So my published work spans the fields of academic advising, gender and sexuality studies, as well as musical theater studies. I hinted at this a moment ago, but my journey to publication really began during my master's program in academic advising. I had finished my master's thesis in music, but like a lot of people who do a lengthy academic document, I thought I never wanted to touch the thing again. But during my master's coursework in academic advising, we would be reading articles from the Clearinghouse and Academic Advising Today. And, I thought I could do this. And I want to do this. This sounds fun. And so what I did is I started with a book review, and that's a very good place to begin. And one thing kind of led to another, and I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but it took about 5 years, but I revisited my master's thesis, and I decided that there was stuff in there that I could publish. And so I ended up publishing over the course of like 3 more years. It took 3 articles out of my master's thesis. In terms of getting involved in academic advising and research in academic advising, one of the things that has been most useful to me is to get involved in the association and the various ways that support writing and publication and to help me continue to grow. I'm on the Publications Advisory Board and the NACADA Journal Editorial Board, and beginning in October, the Research Committee. And through all of this, I have aimed to give feedback that is critical and that will help the presentation or the paper to develop, rather than just simply a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And this is especially important for an emerging field like ours. And our lessons, I have so many lessons and I wish I could share them all, but I have narrowed it down to two that I think are the most important. And the first is that writing is a process, and it's a long process. I think there's a temptation for a lot of us out there to write at a computer and try and catch perfectly well the draft. And in fact, that's one of the worst things that we can do. I think the best thing is to just let all the thoughts out and then over time to reconfigure and revisit that based on work that we do in our own silo, but then also in consultation with other people and in feedback that we receive. Sometimes an outline is a good way to start and to flesh out that outline, but it often, at least I have found, that it takes writing through ideas to really kind of figure out exactly what belongs where. And, you know, I've on more than one occasion started with one project that has ended up being multiple manuscripts in the end. And the second lesson for me is to learn to be okay to scrutinize your writing more deeply and to understand that every word has meaning. And to develop kind of a thick skin when you're receiving feedback from people. Sometimes we're really vulnerable about our writing, and we need to be open to that feedback in order for it to improve and grow. My current and future projects, the most important of my current projects is, of course, my dissertation. And my dissertation is looking at the professionalization of academic advising. And it's partially in response to the article that was published in the NACADA Journal by Lee Schaefer and his colleagues in 2010. This dissertation is being prepared as a collected papers dissertation, and this differs a bit from a traditional dissertation because the individual papers are actually being directly prepared for publication. And so out of this project, there will be a phenomenological ethnography for which I've interviewed many NACADA leaders, and that was an amazing pleasure, about the state and status of academic advising as a profession. And I was actually fortunate enough to receive a research grant from the association. And then the second paper is going to be a structured literature review, examining the literature since 1980 about the discussions of professionalization in academic advising and related fields. I don't have time to go into great detail about my other projects, but just to mention them briefly, I'm working on a collaborative autoethnography that's examining advisor professional identity. I'm working on a mixed method study looking at the relational component of academic advisors in a professional development program. I'm doing a phenomenological study on the experiences of Hispanic gay men in fraternities. And because I'm kind of all over the place, I'm also working on a study of Disney singing villains. So I don't know if we're going to Kiana or if we're going to Wendy next, but.
We are going to go to Kiana next. I was just pausing there for the study of Disney villains to just kind of sit there just a little bit. That is so awesome. Kiana, thank you, and thank you for coming back.
My pleasure. I'm so sorry. My institution's internet died, so I'm using my phone's hotspot right now. So sorry about that. But kind of going back to my story, like I mentioned, I think before I got cut off, you know, for the advisor's position here at UH Manoa, a master's degree is needed. And I love speech so much anyway that I wanted to earn a degree in it. So it worked out nicely. In grad school, I focused on assignments with readings and articles on advising whenever possible. And that would be my first tip to attendees, especially for those who are or will be current graduate students. This proved to be extremely helpful for me when I started my literature review, as I already started looking at articles related to my topic. My thesis specifically focused on the communication behaviors of advisors and how they influence the relevance, clarity, and intimacy advisees experience in their sessions. And so fortunately, I was able to survey advisees at my institution. So near the end of my master's degree, I was hired for the Office of Graduate Education here at UH Manoa, where I had learned about what exactly the Education Administration program is. And I really became interested in it. And so after earning my master's degree, I was then hired as an advisor for the honors program at the same institution. And there I was finally able to implement what I learned through my research into my practice. However, although I found out that although UH Manoa has the most diverse institution in the nation, and the honors program was definitely successful at recruiting students from underrepresented ethnic and minority groups, we were having a really hard time helping them successfully complete their program. And so as I progressed through my doctoral courses, I sought more information on strategies that underrepresented students found useful when achieving academically in college. And so this was a turning point for me now, as my practice now informs my research. And so I got really interested in learning about these strategies and resources students use. And so I wanted to find what those were in my own specific program, and this became my dissertation topic. So I then interviewed 22 students in our program and found common strategies and resources across the interviews, one of which was having a supportive advisor. And so to provide compensation for the students I interviewed and to also cover transcription costs, I applied for the research grant that was offered through NACADA. And unfortunately, I was not accepted the first time. Actually, I received a 2-page single-space rejection letter, but after getting over my wounded ego, I realized just how valuable this feedback was, not just for my grant proposal, but for my dissertation overall. And so the following year, I resubmitted after incorporating all of the feedback and was fortunately accepted. And so this really changed the way I looked at feedback, like how Craig had mentioned earlier. And that leads me to my next tip, is welcoming feedback not as criticism, but more with the goal of self-improving and really having the highest quality paper possible, or proposal, or whatever it is may be. So with the financial support of the grant, I successfully completed my dissertation and graduated in 2014. And with my results, we made changes to the honors program to include and foster the strategies and resources my students found that were helpful to them. So that was neat, because now it's a cycle again. Now my research informed my practice. And so since then, I have presented my research at regional, national, and international conferences. And I found this to be really enjoying, similar to what Craig had mentioned as well, about it really giving me an opportunity to dialogue with people from around the world about how different campuses foster student success. And I found this also to be really helpful in just practicing for my thesis and dissertation defenses as well. Since then, I have been fortunate enough to work with my dissertation chair on other research projects with him, as well as other graduate students and recent alumni across the country. So I'm excited to share that I will be publishing my first journal, or in my first journal, next month. I'm really excited about that. I've also published with NACADA's Academic Advising today, but my first experience with AAT, though, was when Lee, the managing editor, reached out to me to write an article about the sophomore experience program I was chairing at the time. And so that was really interesting to me, in that I changed the way I looked at research, and not just studying, interviewing, surveying, but also sharing research that I conducted about my own programs and committees on campus. And so that was really helpful for me to think about too. But being able to work with my colleagues on and off campus have really made me made my writing, research, and presenting much more enjoyable, and then also really much more manageable for me. And I strongly encourage others to do the same. So I found the process in terms of writing for AAT so supportive and helpful, as it really helped me develop professionally as a writer. And so I love the process so much that I wrote again for AAT on my dissertation findings, and I wanted to provide this opportunity for others within my state. And so some of my colleagues and I, the ones that are in the picture, we're creating our own AAT for the state, and we're hoping to publish our first edition sometime this year. So I really want to take this time to thank Lee for all of her guidance and support as we start this up. But what has really been the icing on the cake for me, though, is that institutions across the nation have reached out to me and let me know that they're including my AAT article on my dissertation findings in their advisor training manuals, which means the world to me, because now my research is not just positively affecting my practice, but others' practices too, even if it's just a little. So thank you.
Thank you, Kiana. And our last panelist is Wendy, and she's going to share her path and the excitement that's related to the new research center.
Thanks, Patty. I wish I could jump back to some of the things that Craig and Kiana said. Maybe some things will come up in the questions, because there were some really important relevant points that they made that we'll want to talk more about. Well, my path was pretty non-traditional to a faculty position in educational research. Started out as a music major. Craig and I are representing today in the music arena. But also was a two-sport athlete, and got a minor in physical education and health, and eventually teaching certification there, and went on to a master's degree in sports administration. It was during that time, I think Craig mentioned this, my program was very practitioner oriented, and 99% of students did a comp option, but I knew I eventually wanted to get a doctorate, so I chose the thesis option, did a historical monograph of administrative theory, and took longer, but I learned so much about the research process and kind of the world of the literature in leadership. Through some circuitous positions in sports administration, ended up at Dartmouth College, where intercollegiate athletics is part of student life. And it was there that I started learning about student development theory and all of the challenges that maturing 18 to 22-year-olds go through. Eventually ended up at University of Alabama at Birmingham, out of athletics and into student affairs, and as director of research and assessment in that division, director of admissions, and then at Illinois State University as director of the University Assessment Office, where I really got into research on learning and developmental outcomes. And then as a full-time faculty member in 2004, teaching research courses. So my path was very practitioner to scholar oriented. So I have a real passion for those who are headed down that road. So there are a lot of transitions I'm missing there, but mostly I really want to talk about the new research center, where we'll focus and where we'll focus our initial energy. If people have asked us, what's the Center for Excellence and Research in Academic Advising and Student Success about, we've come up with kind of a very simple concept, which is help others do research and do research ourselves. And so I'm going to talk about how we're going to do that a little bit in kind of a traditional 3 legs of the stool concept of teaching, research, and service. So I want to do that fairly quickly so I can leave time for questions for Kiana and Craig as well. What's important actually is the importance of the name of our center is the intersection between academic advising and student success. This provides a really unique umbrella under which we'll explore work more deeply, and then we'll have a lasting and growing impact on our profession, as Craig will continue to document for us. It'll be critical to put our arms around the many directions that takes us. We have a dynamic and diverse membership inside of our formal association, which touches really all aspects of higher education research. So if we can build capacity within, have influence without, we'll advance academic advising as educators. We don't really have to start from scratch, though. We've been at this a long time in NACADA. Janet Schulenberg, during her reign as chair of the research committee, and others articulated these 3 main areas under which research projects tend to live. And the picture, by the way, is of Sarah Champlin-Sharp, who was our incoming chair of the research committee. So we'll continue to test these three main areas under which research will be situated to be sure that the full scope of designs and areas of exploration can live. And the full wording of these are available on the research committee website, by the way. But what's important is that we build a broad and deep research base that encompasses the full range of designs and paradigms. You know, academic advising is really unique because we touch every discipline in the university at every level from general education to the most specialized major. So let's get back to the three-pronged approach. So let's talk first about teaching very briefly. We can think of this in terms of professional development. We've been doing this in NACADA for quite a while. We know that advisors tell us that they would get more involved with research if they had two things: more time and more skills in research-related issues. And that confidence as a consumer of the research literature grows from being able to address those two things. So we'll do a lot of workshops, asynchronous, synchronous, lots of platforms that are available to us more and more. And we'll help members gain skills to be involved with and at the very least use and read scholarship in our areas. There are two main areas for instruction, of course, the research skills that I talked about, and scholarly writing, which both Craig and Kiana did a really nice job of talking about the importance of getting better at this type of writing. It's a different type of writing than we normally use as response writing or assessment reports or information kinds of things that we do. This is analytic writing, and we can get better at it. And so look for some upcoming workshops in multiple delivery systems for those kinds of things. The second area is research, of course. Clearly, it will be important to generate original research related to advising and student success, and many of you are already engaged deeply in the scholarship of our profession. So we'll look for higher capacity to connect people in geographical areas, under topical areas, and also to try to get some external funding as funds grow short at our higher education institutions. It'll be important to find partners who will help support the work that we do, and they value cross-disciplinary, cross-level partnerships to fund. And finally, in the area of service, we'll be a service-oriented organization helping scholar practitioners connect with each other, provide consultation service. I've already started talking with a number of people, talking through research ideas, and also to keep you informed about the research that's happening outside of academic advising that connects to academic advising. Remember, too, that we have a really special connection with the College of Education here at Kansas State and the Department of Special Education, Counseling and Student Affairs. I just started teaching my first online course in the Academic Advising Master's Program this week, and so some of you may be involved in that already. Who knows, we may build a doctorate in academic advising someday, so lots to talk about. So how do we get started? Just do it. Get started somewhere, somehow. You don't have to do it alone. Really good work happens with collaboration. You all bring expertise to the table. If you're coming to the annual conference in a couple of months, look specifically for two sessions, one on kind of our traditional writing for NACADA publications presentation, where you'll learn about the audience and purpose, different types of writing for different outlets in NACADA. Already was mentioned, Academic Advising Today and the Journal have already been mentioned. There are a lot of other venues. And then we'll have a new session on scholarly writing. We've done some pilot sessions at the regions. This will be a little session on the elements of scholarly writing and how it's different than that. I'm so pleased to announce two You also want to sign up for your the NACADA Nerds Facebook page if you haven't already. Great opportunity for consultation and just talking through ideas online and seeing what other people are doing. People post articles that they find really interesting and relevant, and that's a lot of fun. But I'm really pleased to announce that this year, for the first time at the annual conference in Atlanta, we've been given space to have consultation sessions, little 25-minute, which you can get a lot done in 25 minutes, sessions where you can come and meet with a research, someone who's been there. I hesitate to say expert because we're all still learning, but there'll be an opportunity, you'll hear more about that, to sign up for consultation sessions throughout the annual conference. What's really exciting is that this is not for an elite few. This is available and important to everyone, and our collective responsibility. And I was attributed that earlier. That certainly is not my original concept. I may have said it, but lots of other people's have as well. And Jennifer Jocelyn and I are talking a lot about just really uncovering the deep practitioner scholar connections that we have in virtually every commission and interest group in the association. So if you have some ideas on how to generate more articulation, how to enter the conversation in the literature related to your area of interest in a commissioner interest group, then let's talk and let's get started. So I think I turn it back to Patty, I believe.
Thank you to each of our three panelists. And I do want to remind people that we have the Q&A open. So if you would like to submit a question, please do so through the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So our first question from a viewer is, how does one sign up for the consultations in Atlanta? Wendy, could you answer that question?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not quite open yet, but we're going to solicit. We're in the process of soliciting the consultants themselves to see what sessions we have populated. They'll be Thursday, pretty much all day, Friday, pretty much all day, and Saturday morning. So you'll see an announcement when it's open to just go in and sign up, just like a Doodle form or a Meeting Wizard form, and you'll be able to plug your name, a brief description of the thing you want to talk about in, and we'll have the consultants listed there, as well as any expertise they have. Some are experts in qualitative or statistics or philosophical, historical design. So some, and most are generalists, but there'll be a big announcement through the NACADA website and listserv as well. Thanks for your interest.
Okay, and we have another question. Kiana, this is for you. We're also busy with our current jobs. For those of us not in graduate programs, how do you find the time to get involved with research projects?
Thank you, Patty. So I found it really difficult and still do. I don't have the answer completely for this question, but for myself, what has made a huge difference in terms of my progress in research is actually starting a writing group here at UH Manoa with those same colleagues that I'm also starting that Hawaii AAT with. And with our group, we meet at least once a month. And what has been really key is just being accountable to other people and, rushing and making sure that you have something at that meeting to share, or else you won't be doing your part in terms of the progress of the group as a whole. And so that has really been helpful. And then also just really blocking time off in your schedule and making sure that you use that time towards scholarly research as opposed to answering emails or taking calls or anything like that. So really just cutting the time out of my calendar has made a huge difference for me.
Thanks, Kiana. So we have another question. Craig, this is for you. How do you handle the editing process? Do you have friends or others who help you look through your drafts at different points?
Ooh, this is a fun question. Yeah, one of the strongest things for me, and it's a blessing that many people may not have, but I have, my advisor has organized a group of my doctoral colleagues, and so we're kind of put into these groups, and so we do read each other's drafts. But in terms of, I mean, so that's part of it. But on the other, talking about publication, for example, you know, one of the common things about publication is if you get a revise and resubmit or a rejection, you get a list of feedback from the reviewers. And so one of the things I do is I put all of the comments into a matrix and kind of so that it's very organized. And I just one by one go through these comments and do everything that I can to address as much of these concerns as I can. So.
Okay, thank you, Craig. So another of our participants says, does NACADA have a research agenda for identifying critical topics to research? Wendy, would you like to field that?
I would love to, and I actually have an answer for this. Well, it's ongoing, and one of the important frameworks that we've used in the research committee is the KSAR work about Scholar-Practitioner, where scholars know how to do research, but practitioners ask the best questions. And so, you know, one way that you can help from scratch is to keep a wondering list, just a journal that I wonder why students who this, I wonder why, blah, 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 and let me know those questions. But we actually have a really nice critical questions document started some years ago when the annual conference was in Denver. Jenny Bloom and I facilitated a brainstorming session using those 3 areas within the research agenda and tried to generate research questions that came out of what they thought about with those, and we had a consensus process. We did that again in Melbourne a couple summers ago at the international conference and found very similar issues that go on at higher education institutions across the globe. That has turned into about a 17-page document, and if it's not on the research committee website already, Lee and I will look to put that up, but it's a nice way. It's categorized by those 3 areas within the research agenda, and it's just a bunch of research questions that start us thinking about getting deeper into research. And so the goal is to keep building that document and to attach future scholarship to those questions. So we'll try to get it on the website, but if you email me at wgtroxel@ksu.edu, I'll shoot it to you this afternoon.
Thanks, Wendy. We have another music major background person who has asked this question. I'm new to advising, having been on the faculty side for a while before. The individual has a PhD in English. I'm finding it difficult to get advising research, and what would be tips that you would have for switching from a field that's discipline-based to advising research? Wendy, would you like to take that?
Yeah, I don't want to, yeah, I would love to hear Craig and Kiana's perspective, but the main issue here is don't dump your previous disciplinary orientation. Bring it to advising related research. Advising related research is really only a part of it is about advising models and instructional strategies of advising. Mostly it's about student success. It's about helping students throughout the process, and as well as learning and developmental outcomes. So it would be silly for an English major to turn around and feel like they have to do a statistical model of some retention study, for example. Bring your expertise in how you view evidence, how your ways of knowing into the student success related literature. So find ways to connect it. Disciplines do that with their pedagogical arms of their disciplines quite enough, but just view this as another pedagogical arm and bring your expertise to the table. Absolutely.
I'd like to follow up on that, just to piggyback on what Wendy has said. There's a place for all kinds of research in academic advising, And I think too often we think narrowly about research being a quantitative or a survey, or, you know, and that stuff's very important. But there are other important things. I mean, Peter Hagen is doing some tremendous work on a narrative in academic advising. I started to venture into the world of autoethnography, which comes out of the social sciences, but it's really about storytelling. So I just think that there's all sorts of interesting ways to do this. And probably the best way to go about this is to continue to read and to continue talking to people.
Thanks. Kiana, is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I guess that one last tip I'd probably like to add is when I first started looking into what exactly advising research is, I looked through the NACADA journals and just looked through the different studies that were conducted, and you could see, like how Craig mentioned, there's so many different types of research out there on advising that I'm sure, I'm not familiar with music at all in terms of research, but I'm sure that you can find some relation like how Craig did. And so I think just kind of starting off to see how this field may or may not be different to music would be a great start.
Okay, thank you. So our next question, Kiana, we'll start with you and we'll let you and Craig both answer this. How do you make research a priority in your professional life?
Kind of similar to my initial answer with the questions, it's just really focusing and making sure that you have it in your calendar, having a writing group or someone else that you're accountable to will really help make it a priority, especially for here at UH Manoa. There are many advisors who are faculty members, and so as part of our tenure and promotion requirements, one way to fulfill these requirements would be by conducting research. And so for those who choose to fulfill these requirements this way, it's even more of a priority because our job partly depends on it. And so I think just keeping that as part motivation, but also just really finding something that you're passionate about that will help you make it a priority much easier, as opposed to looking at it as something that you have to do or something that you have to check off. If you pursue a field or a topic that you're passionate in, then it will naturally become more of a priority for you.
Okay, thank you. Craig?
Yeah, I'll just follow up on that by saying that one of the quotations we have on that initial slide has to do with everybody having something to contribute, and the field is lesser if we do not hear those different perspectives. And so I think for me, I'm thinking about writing for publication and research projects like all the time, and so I don't know that I have a good answer in terms of like how to do that, because for me, these things are just so interesting to me that I automatically continue to investigate them. But I think it's really important to feel like you have an interesting perspective, because you do, and we need to hear it. Okay.
So we have another question. Can you talk about the political commitments and ethical conduct expected of scholar practitioners? And we're going to shoot this one to Wendy.
I'm interested in the context for political commitments. So I'm going to tackle the ethical conduct piece. What's expected is the highest level of ethical conduct. I'm a golfer. I don't know if any other of you are golfers out there, but golf is one of the few sports at even the professional level where you call your own fouls. You're expected to do that at the highest ethical standards. And if you do something that's against the rules of the game, you call yourself on it and you call an official over, and they assess the penalty. The same thing happens in research. You can do, if you are so inclined, a lot of unethical, almost sometimes not on purpose, because this game, this process is a little different than how you typically handle sources, how you work with students, and that kind of thing. The thing to keep in mind is that we have pretty strict, every institution certainly has pretty strict guidelines on working with human participants. And I say human participants because there's a whole other process for animal participants for a lot of the ag schools and that kind of thing. The big concept of human subjects research is that the benefits of the research outweigh the risks to the participants. And so another good, look for some resources on that soon from the center, but get to know your institutional review board folks, talk to faculty members who do this all the time and submit those protocols about your research design. Cite your sources. We threw a couple of quotes up there earlier, and we'll have the full APA reference citation at the end. That's just what we do if we're going to cite someone, for example. The other thing is, and I was just talking with a graduate student about this today, is you may have a great assessment activity in your office that you're doing that you find really amazing results. And you say, hey, I'll write that up and submit it to the journal or submit it to somewhere else. Remember that there are parameters for sharing your data publicly that are different than your parameters for dealing with data internally in an assessment capacity. So if you have any idea that if you're starting a new intervention or starting a new program that you want to track for research purposes, start early with the informed consent process. How are data handled? How is confidentiality handled? So just commit immediately to do your research of the highest ethical standards. And then that political question, contact me outside and we'll address that one.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. So our next question is, how can academic advising administrators play a role in encouraging scholarly writing? And so I know everyone on the panelist is not or has not been an advising administrator, but maybe you could even talk from your perspective of how your administrator would have encouraged that. So Kiana, do you want to start us off there?
Yeah, sure. So for my administrator, he has been incredibly supportive of scholarly writing in two main ways. So the first way is just allowing me to take time during, my set time here at UH Manoa to meet with my writing group to actually, sit down and do some writing. And so just allowing me that flexibility has been really helpful. The second way that he has been really supportive is just providing travel funds. And so it's not just about attending conferences specifically for advising, which is obviously awesome and really helpful, but allowing me to attend and present at research conferences. And research conferences, I learned, are very, very different from NACADA conferences. And so with the research conferences, it's just very, very different conversations and different experiences. What I like too is that I talk with people who are still in higher education, but not necessarily in advising. So they lend a different perspective on my scholarship. So I really appreciated that. So those, I think, were the two main ways that he has been really supportive in my progress in scholarly writing.
Wendy, would you like to add anything as an administrator in a variety of different roles?
Yeah, it is, earlier there was a question about how do you find time in my current job, and I was really glad that wasn't, we've heard in the past, not so much anymore, about calling it, how do I do this on top of my real job? And I think it's a testament to how this association has embraced the full scope of professionalism and getting involved with the literature and generating entering the conversation about student success. So I think you know, if expectations for research is not built into a job description, which I don't think it very often is, what I've heard works pretty well is you may go to your supervisor or colleagues and say, you know, I'd really like to get involved with something. I'm not sure what. I've been reading articles. I think it's interesting. You know, how can I kind of leverage my expertise and grow my expertise in getting more involved in that. That's kind of where common readings began across units in divisions, is just bringing it more evident, just talking about the different things. And then it's a negotiation, I think, about time and attention to it. I mean, there's certainly faculty are expected to publish. Doesn't mean we don't do it at 3 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, because we're teaching 4 hours or 4 classes a day. But you know, find your windows of think time. Some people do it 15 minutes a day. Some people do it in 4 hours once every 3 weeks with a perfect cup of coffee in a perfect spot. But the most important thing is to just not go it alone. Such good work happens with collaboration. It spreads the workload. It raises the level of discourse. It deepens the exploration, and great things come out of it. And there's real power in that collaboration.
Okay, and our next question is, can you tell us a little more about the NACADA research grant opportunities? And I know Craig and Kiana have both been through the application process. Wendy has been on the other end in regards to feedback. So Craig, do you want to start and talk a little bit about your opportunity?
Sure. I had sort of already formulated my project for the purposes of my dissertation. And so I think, like Kiana, was interested in a research grant because it was a qualitative study with lots of interview data. And anybody who's sat down to transcribe interview data knows how, you know, daunting of a task this can be. And I was fortunate because I had kind of already thought out many of these different things. But I think the website has just tremendous information that made it very clear what the expectations were. And so I got some useful feedback, but I was fortunate enough to receive the grant. And it's been a great experience. I think we did a mid-year report of how the funds had been spent and the progress of the project. And then a final report. And one of the expectations, of course, is that you present at a NACADA conference and or publish in a NACADA venue. So mine's in progress still. I think Kiana can speak from a place of a more conclusion.
No, Craig, you did beautifully. I don't really have too much to add. I mean, I had the same experience as well. With the research grants proposal, I think the biggest challenge I faced was how much time it took. Even with me presenting already writing everything already for, even me presenting already writing already for my dissertation, I still took a considerable amount of time just writing it, formatting it specifically for the proposal. And so that would probably be my biggest tip, is actually in the beginning, is starting much earlier than you think, and then giving yourself a 2-week cushion on top of that, just in case.
Yeah, and I would add that, by the way, logistically, the information's on the NACADA website. I think under research resources, something like that is the grant page with the expectations and timelines and that kind of thing. But both Kiana and Craig bring up really good point. It's probably a grant proposal is probably not the first place you want to start. getting involved in research. It's become very competitive, wonderfully competitive, as it should be. So you'll want a pretty tight design, and actually a grant proposal is a perfect manuscript to give to your critical friends and to a writing group to talk about, to evaluate critically the design and the review. Lots of people start just with a post to the NACADA Nerds website, with doing a hot topic at an annual conference, with doing a little exploratory study to see if, kind of what's there, to do a presentation at a conference. I've started some big research projects as a as an exploratory topic presentation at a conference, at a region conference, for example. And then lots of work goes into a tight, well-constructed research proposal, but there are important resources available not only through NACADA, but through other professional associations related to student success as well. So yeah, go for it.
Well, thank you. As we are approaching the end of our time, I want to thank each of our panelists for taking the time to share about their pathway, and also their being willing to answer your questions. And as you can see on the screen, we do have email addresses, so if there's someone you're wanting to reach out to after the webinar, their address is there, and they would be happy to answer questions that you might have. I do also want to remind you of the one webinar that is left on the plan. So on September 6th, Get Engaged in the Association, Let's Talk Involvement will be hosted, and that's going to be an opportunity for you to learn about every opportunity that is available from an involvement level. So if you're wanting to jump in, all the way up to your head, that's great. If you're just wanting to start to dip your toe in the water, we want to welcome you to that as well. So as we had said earlier, this webinar has been recorded. It will be available on the NACADA website within the week. And so if you would like to check on that later, and if you missed one of the two before ours, you're welcome to get those. Those are posted out on the web now as well. So we do want to thank each of you for taking the time to participate today. And we wish you all a successful academic year and a great year of getting involved with doing research. And our reference slide, as we said, this is research, and so we always want to make sure that we are citing our sources. So our last slide here provides you with those resources outside of the quotes that are there. Those are great publications for you to start looking at if you're just wanting to get involved with scholarly publication at this time. Those are things that are available. I also want to make you very aware that the NACADA website has a lot of resources that are available to you through the clearinghouse. So don't hesitate, if there's something you're thinking about, type it in the search and see what's out there. There may be something that you can build upon, or maybe you're at that point that you want to start to contribute in a way that no one has at this point with NACADA. We also have NACADA resources that are available for order, whether those, it's as a member you get the journal, but if you're wanting to look at monographs, different publications that are out there, as well as webinars, those are all available for you to help you engage more as a scholar practitioner. So thank you so much for your time, and have a great school year.